All right, take it away when you're ready. Same deal here. No intro, no outro.
Hold on. Okay, just trying to read this. All right. Tim Pearce is in studio. He's a retired LAPD gang unit. Office is where he worked. 17 years experience?
Yep, 17 years in South Central Los Angeles.
Oh, sounds so depressing. I'm curious about gangs because I was talking to Dr. Drew earlier today. I'm driving down PCH. I see all these Winnebagos parked out there, all falling apart, covered crap, dust, and everything. And I'm going, people are living in these things. And he goes, gangs are involved with those things. And I'm like, are they selling them or renting them, or are they somehow involved with that?
That's I would imagine they have their hands in anything they can make money in.
They're like a drug cartel, right?
Yeah,
they'll do drugs, they'll do human trafficking, they'll do fentanyl, they'll do whatever.
Yep. That when I left LAPD, I left in 2014, and this homeless thing wasn't the way it was, it is now, right? But the gangsters some of them would use them, for prostitution. Right?
Homeless.
Yeah. Oh no, the gangsters. They'd run prostitution out of them.
Oh, out of the Winnebagos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They'll just do anything.
Yeah.
And so your specialty was like unsolved gang murders?
So I ended my career in criminal gang homicide cold case. And so we would focus on gang crimes. And it was interesting. The station had this cargo container, and all our old cases, unsolved cases from that division would be in there. And we just walk through there and look at the names of the cases and remember, like, oh, wow, 10 years ago I was on that scene. I was one of the first responders. I didn't know that went unsolved because as a gang officer, you're responding, you're there, you're working it for maybe the first couple days, 3 days. They develop suspects or whatever. You're trying to snatch guys up and get information. And then another murder happens, and you're on that. So next thing you know, you're 5 murders down, and you don't know what happens to those cases. So we would go back and just pick them out and start working them again because sometimes the suspect in there, nobody in the neighborhood would talk because he's got a grip on the neighborhood.
Right.
But since then, maybe he's done another murder or he's in prison for life or 20 years or whatever, and now the neighborhood's a little more comfortable to talk. So we would just go out and start re-interviewing everybody, resubmit everything for all the evidence for DNA and such like that.
What percentage of those guys were just in prison in that 10 years anyway for something else?
So like gangsters they're not all created the same, right? So you can have a gang, but not everybody's a shooter, right? So a lot of them are doing it's kind of like a football team. You have the quarterback out there, but you got your other guys that are doing other jobs. So you have guys that are really good at stealing cars, guys that are good at breaking into houses, and they're stealing the guns out of the houses to use for the gang. You have people running intel. You have the women who are involved, who are a lot of times involved in the identity theft game. They'll have a good gangster has many streams of income coming in, but they're not all shooters. So they're not all going to jail for that. But they may be a shooter on one day, but they're selling dope on another day.
And when you hear so where are we as a nation, but in LA, like with gangs? Like, where was it the height? When were we at a height? Is it now? Are there more different gangs than there used to be? You hear Crip and Blood, but now there's got to be all sorts of other gangs, international gangs, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see MS-13 and all that coming up. I was focused on Watts most of my career, and this Crenshaw District and Watts, so mostly black gangs. And like when I got to Southeast Division Watts in 2001, we were running 80, 90 murders a year in just like a 5 square mile area.
Wow.
And those numbers have dropped quite a bit. They're down in the 30s and I think low 40s now. But it was out of control, and it was even worse before that. So it's been coming down, but we're also, because of the attitude towards police these days, cops are just going hands off. That's been a trend for a long time, especially since the George Floyd and the rioting and all that, and then COVID. Everybody's just backed off, and there's very little proactive policing going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not in a gang, but I used to notice a lot more policing of the highways, a lot more pulling people over, and I would get pulled over, and they, if you hopped in the diamond lane and you were alone in your car, you'd get popped pretty quick. And I just started kind of looking around since COVID, especially, and I was like, I'm not getting pulled over. I'm not slowed down. I'm not driving any safer. I'm still doing 85 and a 65. I'm not getting pulled over, and I'm not seeing people pulled over. Like they pulled back, or I don't know if it was a memorandum or they just emotionally. I mean, look, everyone, if you're kicking the shit out of firemen and blaming them for everything, then there's going to be a lot less firemen recruits showing up to the next class. Yeah. I mean, that's a human behavior type of situation. If you're making cops the enemy and dumping buckets of water on their head and assaulting them, there's going to be less cops, and the ones that are around, you think they want to get out of their car and be filmed?
There's an old saying, if you want to headhunt your cops, you better get really comfortable with your criminals. Right? And so a department that is looking to the gotcha era, looking to get every cop for every little thing, they're going to pull. What they have done is they're pulled back. It's not worth it, right? You have a mortgage, you have kids, you have bills, all that kind of stuff. You're going to minimize the drama. A proactive cop goes out and makes stuff happen, tries to arrest you before you go stick a gun in someone's face and commit a robbery. I'm trying to get the pistol off you, so I'm using, small minor infractions of the law to get up and make contact with you, and then get a pat down and figure out if you got the weapon or you run or whatever. I get the weapon.
Right.
I get that before you stick that gun in somebody else's face. And that is, not all cops are the same, right? You could have guys that are good at traffic, good at patrol, good at SWAT, whatever, but there's a different kind of cops that are really proactive, pushing the envelope all the time. And that is, you have to be taught that, right? It's very, very uncomfortable to be that confrontational all the time, but that's how you get those felonies off the street. And that is going away completely. And, even if like the governor and the chief and the mayor all got together and said, guys, the era of sorry about that.
All right, we got a little water knock over, but that's fine. We'll have, my staff will mop it up for you.
The era of gotcha is over, then nobody would believe that, right? Because too many cops are getting their heads taken off.
Right.
And so they're pulling back and just preserving what they can and minimizing the drama they're getting into. So I think it would take years for them to get comfortable again. And we've already had several years of pullback. So who's going to teach these cops how to be proactive in the future? Yeah.
Look, people have a self-preservation gene. Like they want to keep their job, they want to keep their relationship, they want a status quo. And so it's a natural thing. We just got done with COVID. People thought a mask work, or they didn't think a mask worked. They didn't want to get yelled at, lose their job, or whatever. So they all sort of got in line. That's people are pretty easy. And it's also path of least resistance. And if you're going to be asked to get out of your car, and maybe the suspect is black and someone's filming you, you just stay in your car and you keep driving, you keep your job. That's everyone's default setting. So then you're going to get more crime and more of what you don't want. But they created it by doing this and treating people this way. The politicians with their defund and all their other nonsense. A total insanity, but you're going to get more of what you don't want. And it's sometimes their heart's in the right place. They just don't realize there's downstream effects to whatever your bad policy is today. So for you, you're going into South Central and Crenshaw on a daily basis. Are you driving a marked car?
Yeah.
And do you know eventually people know who you are, right? I mean, you know who they are.
Oh yeah, that's your job.
Right.
As a gang cop, your job is to get to know these guys, know their tattoos, their baby mama, if they're on probation or parole, where they live, who they hang out with, what cars they drive, what their homeboys drive, and you're like a human intel resource.
Right.
So you get to know these guys. I mean, you can't go in there with the big stick and like I'm the boss.
Right.
The place will eat you alive.
Right.
Right. You see, there's a game to play of respect.
Right.
And some guys you're gonna butt heads with all the time, no doubt. But a lot of them, you end up to learn that they're a character or whatever, and they, a lot of them are really smart, and you get relationships with them. You'll never trust them, right? You're going to make sure they're not armed before you stop, and then chop it up with them, and you find things out that way too, and you get this trust. So that pays off down the road.
Are they all? Is there a equation of math? They all sort of come from the same place, like fatherless homes, or dropouts from high school. Is it all just broken homes?
A lot of it is, yeah. In Southwest Division, you get a real mix of middle class, but there's been this long history of gang activity there, right? So you'll have mom and sister work for DMV and Water and Power, and brother is a straight hardcore Crip.
Really?
Yeah, and it's actually dangerous. More cops have been killed in Southwest Division than down in Watts, because Watts is kind of a little different, and because the violence has always been so high there, the officers treat the stops a little more aggressively, and because they have to. Where you're in Southwest Division, it's more middle class, and you're treating everybody like middle class, and you have to drop your guard a little bit. So, so we get bit more often there.
Right. Surprise. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also, I guess we just had this whole Tyreek Hill thing. He got pulled over. And he got cuffed and thrown down. And I'm always just like, just comply. Everyone just comply. These guys are on edge. They don't know who everyone is. You got tinted windows. Just comply. It's the easiest thing in the world. I don't know why. It literally needs to be taught in school. Keep your hands 10 and 2 on the wheel. Ask officer if you can go for your glove box. Just whatever it is you want, let's give it to you. And you can tell me, but the best chance you got at getting out of a ticket is just yes sir, no sir, right?
Absolutely. Every use of force I've ever been in, I would always at the end of it go, man, none of this would have happened if you would have just said, what do you need, sir?
Right.
And just followed instructions.
Right.
Like, you don't, if you want to make a complaint, you feel you're wrongfully stopped, that comes afterwards. Right? You can't do that ahead of time, because we're looking at, this guy, it's fight or flight, right? And is he buying time to make a move?
Right.
Or I have to look at it like, how is this guy going to kill me?
Right.
But I have to also downplay it as much as possible. But that's definitely on my mind. And the more they're arguing and refusing to follow instructions, the more I'm getting amped up and thinking, why is he doing this? What's he hiding?
Right.
And so it just, and I have to, I don't want to say win, but I have to have control. Otherwise, I'm just walking away completely defeated, and I'm not a law enforcement officer at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I always just tell everyone, don't think of them as cops. Think of them as guys with a gun.
Yeah.
And you don't have one. So how would you act?
Yeah, exactly.
If a guy had a gun, if a guy had a gun and I was just sitting at a bar stool watching a Steelers game and he told me to get up and step over 2 bar stools and I saw he had a gun, then I would just do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fight with him and I wouldn't wrestle with him and I wouldn't argue with him because he had a gun.
Yeah.
So I would just sort of listen. But it's also your best shot at getting out of a ticket
100%.
By being super compliant.
Yeah, the officer's pulled you over. He's got to make a decision. Is he going to give you a warning, or is he going to give you a ticket?
Right.
And there's not much you can do about that, right? Other than be cooperative and nice. And it's like, I almost didn't get hired. Well, I did not get hired by a couple departments because I had too many tickets when I was trying to become a cop.
Oh, on your own record.
Yeah, sure.
That's funny.
So And when I get pulled over, I do the same thing. I roll my windows down, I throw the light on, I put my hands on the steering wheel, and I say, "What do you need, sir?" Even now, I say, "Hey, I'm a retired officer. I have a weapon under the seat of my car, just so you're not alarmed." And I mean, that's all. That's the only option you really have.
I agree in that moment. Later on, lawyer up and get in front of a judge or whatever, make a complaint. But in that moment, that's what you got. Yep. That's what I keep telling everyone. So now, when you hear about, there's all this talk about like Aurora, California, and these gangs coming in and taking over apartment buildings and stuff like that, and Fox News says they're doing it, and CNN says they're not doing it, and then you see some footage where it looks like they're doing it, but then the mayor says they're not doing it, but I'm not sure if I trust the mayor, or I don't know who to believe. And then these are Nicaraguan. I'm trying to think of where they're from. But what are they doing? What are we talking about? How do you take over an apartment building if you're a gang? And was there any version of that was taking place out here when you were on the beat?
Yeah, we would have people move into the neighborhood. Look, if you're living in the neighborhood and you're not down with the gang in some way, shape, or form, or you don't have some kind of long history there, family history there, you're really not allowed to come out of the house, right?
Really?
Yeah. So a new person moving in, I've seen it, where they move in, sure enough, someone shows up on the doorstep, lifts the shirt, shows a pistol, says, "You have any problem on this block, you come talk to me. I run this block." Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what are you going to do at that point?
Right.
And everybody, and so they have multiple, family and friends on those blocks because they've been there for a long time. So you don't know who's your ally.
Right.
Or one where they pulled up their moving truck and got 30 people descended on it, stripped it clean.
Right.
And the neighbors are like, well, just welcoming them to the neighborhood.
Right. So the guy who showed you the gun, who knocked on your door after you just moved into the neighborhood, is saying, "Pay me protection money, and you'll be okay here."
Don't call the police.
Oh, that's what they're saying.
Yeah. We're going to be out here selling dope, and you see whatever you see. I mean, this is what's inferred. You keep your mouth shut. Mm-hmm. I helped some homicide detectives arrest a 16-year-old for murder. And, I'm sitting in the backseat of the police car with him, guarding him while they're talking to grandma inside the house. Mm-hmm. And he's a hardcore PJ Crip. And
what's PJ?
Project Crip from Imperial Gardens, one of the housing projects in Lawrence. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to him, and just like this, and I go, "Hey, man, if I was a young kid, moved in here, and I didn't want anything to do with the gangs, like nothing. I just want to go to school, do my own thing. I go, what's life going to be like for me?" He goes, "You ain't with us? You better stay in the fucking house."
Right.
Just like that, and just confirming what I already knew.
Right.
But everybody kind of knows that. So, if you're just a normal Joe and you're watering your lawn and the police are coming around the corner and you say, "Hey, one time," you give them a little heads up, right? Okay, you might be cool. You might be fine. Your kids aren't going to have a problem. But if you call the police and they figure out that you called the police, your kids are going to get hammered on the way to school, on the way home. Your house is going to be targeted. Like, they absolutely control the block.
What are some of the? Have you seen? Give me a success story and a sad story out from that chapter.
Sad one, and could have been a success one, is we had a group of gangsters that we'd stop all the time, right? We had relationships with you guys. We knew them. They knew us really well. And there was one kid, he was a good-looking kid, and he was smart, and he was just in it. Sometimes they're in it just for the girls, right? As they get a little status. Mm-hmm. And we talked to this guy. I go, "Man, if you keep hanging out in this driveway, you're going to get smoked. Mm-hmm. Like, they're going to come get your cousins, but you're going to get dumped." Like, and so I go, we talked him into moving to his grandma's house out in Kansas. And,
Kansas?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And didn't see him for like a year.
A Crip or blood?
He was a Crip. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, one summer, we see him show back up. And, hey, hadn't seen him a long time, right? Mm-hmm. Pat him down real quick. But once I know he doesn't have a weapon on him, he's with 5 other gangsters that I know. Mm-hmm. Family, right? Start talking to him. "How you been?"
How old is he at this point?
17. Mm-hmm. How's things been? "I moved out there. Everything's chill. Blah blah blah. Life's better. I just came back to see family." 2 nights later, smoked in the same driveway.
Really?
Yeah.
Just drive by?
Drive by.
And they weren't targeting him.
No, they're targeting all the guys that hang out there.
Right.
They just lit him up, and he took a bullet, and he died.
Wow.
And I was just like, God, man, it's just, and that's kind of the only way to get out of it is to get out of the neighborhood, get away from those influences.
Right.
And and that's actually one of the things I loved about police work is it is complicated, and there's so much food for thought, social food for thought, and social thought, and so it's always interesting. It's hard. It's super hard work, right? It's all the drama.
Listen, I used to be a carpenter and construction and earthquake rehab and stuff. Like, I don't mind hard work, but that would be too emotionally taxing for me. Yeah. I don't think I could handle it. I really don't. And I don't even have nerve endings half the time. I just feel like I would get so depressed, like seeing that. Like, I get depressed. One of my problems with Los Angeles is there's like so much garbage and graffiti everywhere. I actually get bummed out. Like, I drove the other night from Orange County back to LA, and everyone knows that experience. Like, Orange County, the freeways are wide, they're clean, they're landscaped, they look nice, and then all of a sudden you come pulling in, and you see graffiti and garbage and old baby strollers and stuff. And I start getting depressed from inside of my car just because it's like aesthetically, that's where I'm living. And I think about it, like I'm out in Malibu, and there's like the Malibu Fire Department right on PCH. I'm like, you guys, man, you got it made.
Yeah.
And
smart ones.
And then there's the one in Watts in South Central. Like, I would just get depressed, and it's got to be tough. I don't know where you live, Simi Valley, a lot of cops in Torrance. Going into that neighborhood just with the decay, you know what I mean? Just visually.
I used to, I was pretty vocal about what was going on there because where I live in Torrance, 2 Watts is 8 miles at most.
Right.
And two completely different worlds.
That's the other thing that's mind-numbing is you could literally be talking about 2-3 miles as the crow flies from sort of suburbia utopia to just insanity.
What you were talking about traffic earlier, I've noticed the exact same thing. It's like there's no traffic enforcement now, right?
No.
And which in some ways I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
Yeah. And traffic as a cop, like I hated writing tickets. But
did you have to?
There's no quota. No. And being a gang officer, no.
Oh, being a gang. But here's what I want to say, or my thought. I noticed this in Burbank especially, because did they write some tickets in Burbank? But I was like, there is no quota, but if you go a month without writing a ticket, someone's going to say something, right?
Exactly. Like when you come into at your end of watch and you're going to turn in your log, which, lays out everything you did for the day, you better turn it in with an arrest report or what we call FI cards, or you better have some tickets there. You have to show some kind of production. Yeah,
you weren't just around for an 8-hour shift.
Yeah, and the motor cops, that's their job is traffic, right?
Right.
On the motorcycles. It's not expected of us in gangs because we're pushing a different agenda there. And but I went on a little ride along down in Southeast with an old partner of mine and a guy who was down there doing some philanthropy. And so we stop at like 92nd and Figueroa at a little taco cart, and we're going to get some tacos. It's like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. And I hear this rumbling, and coming down Figueroa is like 20, 25 dirt bikes, go-karts, quads, right? In and out of traffic, on the wrong side of the road, just like Mad Max.
Right.
And that is extreme. I've seen it multiple times down there over the last couple of years.
Yes.
And then what I'm noticing is every single intersection has all the burnout marks from where they do the intersection takeovers.
I'm glad you brought that up because it was on my list of things to talk to you about, which is I noticed it first when I went to Chicago and I was just sitting at a beautiful restaurant on like Shoreline Drive and I can't remember Shoreline, or the main drag in the nice part of Chicago with the Peter Luger Steakhouse, sitting outdoors, and all of a sudden the quads and the dirt bikes and off-road stuff.
Yeah.
And they started rolling through town. And so I took it not as, oh, there's dirt bikes on the street and this is loud. I took it as symbolically they have lost control of their city, because that's what this is. It means symbolically you've lost control of your city. The street takeover, people go, oh, it's dangerous or it's bad for the environment or makes a lot of noise. What it means is we no longer have dominion over the city we run and live in. And the cops can just sit back and watch as these guys do donuts if they show up at all. I noticed it. So when there's street takeovers, that is a sign that your city has lost it.
Yep.
LA has street takeovers. I was in San Francisco about a year ago. This is like 2 or 3 years after I was in Chicago, and there was an entire mini bike gang that just made the whole run. And I was like, oh, San Francisco, you guys lost. You lost. You gave up.
Yeah.
You lost your city. Even in Malibu, I see 75 mini bikes doing the PCH run right down the middle. Now, that would have been unthinkable when I was a kid. I had a mini bike. You had to like push it across. You would push it across main streets and then look around and then hop on it on the side streets and then push it across again in case a cop drove by. We've now lost it. And the dirt bikes, there's a movie, there's a doc called 12 O'Clock Boys, which is young inner city kids on dirt bikes just doing wheelies and stuff. It started in Baltimore. So Baltimore had the first just complete breakdown of this. But now we're in LA and San Francisco and Chicago as well. And it's a eerie harbinger. It means you're on your own. Like the cops have lost control.
Yeah, they're pulling back. You know, it's just not worth the drama. And you know, you don't want to get complaints from the public because those stack up in your file and they work against you. And everybody knows that.
So these guys were just quads and dirt bikes and everything just rumbling down. Whatever.
And then the prostitution is out of control on Figueroa.
Oh, it is.
They made it not illegal to loiter for the intent of prostitution. So they kind of handcuffed the vice officers, and it's just wild. I mean, YouTube prostitution on Figueroa right now, 2024 or 2023, it is insane. And there's a lot of human trafficking involved in that, right? These girls, some are out there by choice, all the pimps are on the side streets.
Yeah, well, it's another one of those Gavin Newsom things where like, we're going to decriminalize the blah, blah, blah because it disproportionately affects black and brown. And next thing you know, it's just prostitution everywhere and human trafficking. Everything you don't want, you just got it because of your stupid legislation.
That one night that I'm at that taco stand and here comes Mad Max down the middle of Figueroa, and I can, within eyesight, I can see 30 prostitutes hanging out, and everybody that lives on those are houses. People have to walk their kids to school, and they got to go through the middle of that. They're even opening up stores on Figueroa that cater only to the prostitutes. You know, tiny little bikinis and net tops. That's all they sell.
Oh, you mean the apparel for prostitutes?
Yeah.
It's
insane.
It is. It's also like, look, could we think about a course correction here, people?
Yeah.
Like maybe there's another direction we'd like to go.
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, God, exactly what you said. I'm standing there, and my old partner, he looked at me, he goes, "You're in disbelief, huh?" I go, "Yeah, this is out of control."
Yeah, it literally is. You have lost control of your city, and all they are is emblematic of your loss of control. All you can do is sit back and watch as this thing takes place. And I don't know how does a cop bust 75 guys on dirt bikes who can, by the way, hop up on the sidewalk. Yeah. Now in Baltimore, in this doc, the 12 O'Clock Boys. What year was that? I got to look it up. Now, of course, what happens in Baltimore is not only do the guys ride the wheelies around down the street, When the cops show up, they ride wheelies around the cop car and kick the side of the door in while they're doing it. And one time, a cop chased one of these kids, and the kid hopped up on the sidewalk on his dirt bike and got killed. And then they blame the cops.
Yeah.
And then the neighborhood burns because the cop shouldn't have chased him. How's this ever going to work out here, people?
We've chased people with guns, and we've had supervisors that say, "What'd you do to make him run?"
Right.
He's a criminal. He's got a gun.
Right.
It was his choice.
Right.
I just followed, right, to catch him. But, looking at we're the problem.
12 o'clock boys, by the way, 2013. So the point is this shit's been going on in Baltimore for over a decade, but San Francisco and L.A. and Chicago is turning into Baltimore, and this is one of those things. It's not kooky science either. It's like the rehab guys will go. The addiction medicine guy goes, well, people, they start smoking weed in high school, and then they start drinking, and then they step into pills, and the next thing you know, they start getting to heroin, and they smoke heroin, then they start injecting heroin. Yes, it's a progression. It's how cities decay and decline.
Yeah, it's those small things like the broken windows, theory. You got to take care of the small things, otherwise it's just going to get, the big things will just grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, but it seems like there's L.A. doesn't have political will for that, the city council and whomever. They're not, I had the craziest conversation with the guy who runs the Staples Center on a boat about 6 years ago. He's a funny gentleman he just is in charge of the Staples Center, or what was now crypto, whatever. I've told the story a few times, but it was a weird one. I said to him, I went and saw a basketball game with my son, at the Staples Center, and then we walked out, and I tripped over a guy who was selling hot dogs in a shopping cart with a propane tank. And by the way, there were 75 of them, and they're all on your property. They're not on the street. They're on the Staples Center, the mezzanine or whatever. They're against the exit door. They're on your property. He goes, yeah, hate it. Hate it. Pulls a picture out, shows me one of the propane shopping carts with a giant cockroach roasting next to the hot dog. He goes, I hate it. I wish we could. I said, do something then. Get rid of these people. They're on your property. You're selling concessions. You're selling hot dogs. There's a place across the way paying premium rent and insurance and unemployment and everything, and they're trying to sell tacos in a legitimate way. These guys are, he goes, I hate it. Because you run the Staples Center, go tell the city council to clean this up, because I don't want to get into trouble. I said, I'll get into trouble. I said, well, what are you talking about? I said, I can't. If I go bring this up to them, they'll get pissed off at me, and they'll start coming down on me, and I don't want to risk it.
What kind of power do they have over him?
Oh, they'll tell him that, I don't know, maybe his liquor license ran out, or maybe the concert that could take place until midnight. Now there's a noise ordinance. We're going to cut you off at 9:30. Like, whatever it is,
true.
They're going to make it tough, or they can make it tough, and he didn't want to risk it. Which means the people selling the hot dogs are in charge, not him. And the guy who runs the Staples Center is not really in charge. The city council's in charge, and he doesn't want to piss them off. So I don't feel like we have the political will to get rid of a lot of this stuff.
No, it certainly doesn't seem that way. I don't. They're going to have to do something with the Olympics coming up.
Yeah,
they're going to have to get control of the city. They're going to have to clean the city up. So there's going to have to be a major shift in how they look at policing. They're going to have to back these officers up, because the officers want to do the work, but they don't want to get hammered if they get a complaint or they get called into question.
Right.
Look, you have to have a discipline system. You have to have a complaint system, but it doesn't have to be draconian. Officers need gray area to work, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think they feel that there's any. I think if they feel that if they make any kind of mistake, they're gonna get hung.
Also, a lot of guys are probably just getting recruited and going somewhere else, right?
Oh, for sure.
City, it's more hospitable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know some of those stories?
Yeah. I mean, that comes and goes. When Chief Parks was in, we had everybody under 20 years, because that's actually when that complaint system started. Mm-hmm. You know, if you were my sergeant before and I stopped a guy here and then he's claiming that I used force on him, and we didn't, but they want to put blame on anybody but themselves.
Right.
You would come out, interview him, go, you don't have a single mark on you. You said that he hit you in the head with a flashlight, and you don't have any marks. Neighbor says, they still had. Parks made it so they still had to make a complaint, take a complaint, regardless of the facts.
Right.
And so that really started squashing proactive policing. It's just gotten worse since then. Bratton came in, cleaned it up, improved it, and but I think it's back to the way it was.
Yeah. And for you, high-speed pursuits, shot at, shot back, any good action stories?
Well, what's crazy is I was a construction worker before I became a cop, and I don't even like conflict at all. I like to get along. I'm like a Labrador. I like to get along with people, right? So,
yeah.
And but I needed a job, and I needed benefits and everything. And I looked at policing, I could start with a decent wage, insurance, all that kind of stuff, and it's respectable, and I don't need a college degree. Mm-hmm. So I got into it, and I said, you know what? I'm scared of doing this, to tell you the truth. Put me in the worst possible place you can, and then let me survive that, and then everything else will be easier for the rest of my career. Mm-hmm. So I asked to go to the South End, but when I got there, the South End meaning South Central, when I got there, I realized gangsters are the cancer of the city here. Mm-hmm. They're ruining it for everybody. Mm-hmm. Right? They make it so uncomfortable. That you don't know who's going to stick a gun in your face or whatever. And so I thought, let me just focus on that. And that felt like time well spent as an officer. Mm-hmm. And then I just got good at it. But I mean, I've been, times where, I've seen my badge shaking on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Your heart's thumping.
Yeah. And you have to get acclimated to that. I never in my life thought I would even be a cop or then to be a gang cop. Right? Mm-hmm. And then to be a gang cop in the worst place you can possibly be. But you acclimate to it, and it turned out to be a wonderful career. You asked for a story, how this job, some of the things that can bite you. I ended up marrying a police officer. She was actually my classmate, Christina Rapati. And we got put on patrol together, partners, and then we went to the crash unit together, the gang unit, and then we both got really good at that. Mm-hmm. And when we had 10 years on, we got married, and our daughter was about 16, 17 months old. She was working up there off Martin Luther King and Denker, Martin Luther King and LaSalle, just west of USC. Mm-hmm. She's doing crime suppression. She sees a guy. She's driving down, heading to the station, and it's 10 o'clock at night. Actually, that morning, we had run a relay race with my gang unit for a fundraiser for fallen officers' families. Mm-hmm. 10 a.m., 10 p.m., she's on patrol going down Denker towards Martin Luther King, sees a guy looking shady, like he's dumping something behind a car. Her and her partner key in on it. Hey, let's grab him real quick. What they don't know is he has just robbed a liquor store on the corner across the street from the station.
Across the street from the station.
Yeah. The victims literally ran across the intersection, catty corner, to the front desk and are putting it out, or telling the desk officer, hey, we just got robbed. He just ran up Denker. Well, Christina is coming southbound, sees the guy, doesn't know any of this, gets out of the car, hey, let me talk to you. Boom, he runs, right? Mm-hmm. It was actually her third for pursuit of the night. She chases him, doesn't see a gun in his hands, right? The hands was what kill you, right? So chases him, cuts around a lawn, runs up to a fourplex, tries to get into someone's house. These guys will run in anybody's house. Mm-hmm. And it gets super complicated at that point. As he's trying to get in, she catches him, grabs him by the shoulders, and he turns and spins and stuffs a pistol up under her armpit and shoots her above the vest.
Wow.
And that breaks through those ribs, that artery, hits her in the T2 vertebrae, cuts her spinal cord, and she drops paralyzed, drops and hits the deck. He stands over and he shoots at her 3 more times trying to execute her.
Wow.
Her partner who was driver, was a few steps behind, stops on the grass, and as this guy is trying to do the coup de grace on Christina, her partner's shooting at him and hits him in the shoulder, spins him around, and a bullet goes through, one goes through his shoulder, spins him around, one goes through his back, goes through his aorta. He ends up dropping dead next to Christina. And luckily, our SWAT officers were in the neighborhood doing crime suppression, and they had just been trained as medics. They graduated like 2 days earlier. They got to her first. So, and Joe, her partner, was sticking his finger up inside the bullet hole, pressing on the artery that was pumping blood out.
Wow.
I'm in Watts, down in Jordan Downs Housing Project, and I hear the help call. My partner, Scotty Stevens, I go racing up there. We're going to an officer down help call. Right?
They don't say the name of the officer.
No. And our schedules were so screwy that as we're flying down Century Boulevard, jumping on the 110, and we're going to get off at Coliseum. And my partner turns to me, he goes, Christina working tonight? And I had forgotten that she was. I go, yeah, she is. And he goes, you think she's in this? And I go, Leighton LaSalle was the corner where she got shot. And I go, well, it's her hood, Rolling 30's hood, so she's probably in the mix. And not thinking she's the one shot.
Right.
And then my phone rings in my pocket, and it's her sergeant, who's a friend of ours.
Uh-huh.
And I go, oh, here it goes.
Right.
And he goes, Tim, where are you at? I go, I'm getting off at Coliseum right now. I'll be right there. He goes, it's Christina. I go, yeah, I know. I'll be right there. We get there. And I actually get there when the paramedics are putting their boxes down. They had just gotten there, kneeled down, assessing her. The SWAT guys had her bagged and doing CPR on her. And there was that thick purple syrupy arterial blood coming out from under her back, down 4 steps, and a big puddle of it out on the walkway.
Wow.
And I ran up, and I remember grabbing the paramedic's shoulders and separating them and looking at her. And she was sheet white, no blue in her eyes, completely locked and fixed. And I saw all that blood, and I was like, oh, there's no way she's going to make this, right? That guy had like a 76-page rap sheet.
Really?
Yeah. He'd been in and out of prison his entire life, and never completed his parole, never had gotten off parole. He'd always violated. Lots of gun charges. He had a murder charge back in the day, and but mostly robberies. He even robbed a church.
Wow.
And tried to take, the basket they pass around.
Right.
Was in there trying to take that at gunpoint. The patrons all got on top of him. He was trying to shoot somebody on top of him, and they were holding the gun.
Jesus
That
Christ.
type of a guy. Even the family said there was zero redeemable qualities about this guy. But Christina didn't know any of that. And she didn't know she's just doing what she's supposed to do.
Right.
And all those cops are facing that same threat all the time.
So did Christina pass?
No, she's paralyzed from the nipple line down. She's in a manual wheelchair. She actually ended up with went undiagnosed was a brain injury due to blood loss, massive blood loss.
Oh.
So they know when you have massive blood loss, your brain sheds blood. Your amygdala and your frontal cortex get injured first. Mm-hmm. So your executive decisions and your amygdala is your fight and flight, right?
Right.
And so she struggles with, she was an extreme athlete, an amazing police officer, like cut above, male, female, anything. She was top-notch police officer, well-known in LAPD. And so now she's, in a manual wheelchair. We actually had a little boy 2 years after she was injured, and that was 2006, so that she was shot. But that's the kind, and I bring that up because that is the kind of risk that we take. If you're dead, it's over. Mm-hmm. But she's got this lingering, she got to live like that, paralyzed from nipple line down. Ultimately, she went back to school at USC. Swim with Mike Foundation got her a scholarship, and she got her master's in sociology and is now doing therapy with people, a lot of PTSD therapy, and it's made a really big impact on her life to be able to help other people.
Yeah, well, she sounds pretty remarkable.
She's incredible. She's the strongest woman I've ever met.
And still married.
No.
Not married.
Yeah, we were married for 7 years after that, and the brain injury and things, it caused a lot of problems, and it's a terrible story, but we ended up getting divorced, and now we're friends and everything. We still do family dinners and stuff like that. It's all good, but she has a hard time. She can only control so much in her world. She's got to keep her world pretty small. And I think there was a lot of pressure, on her being a mom, being a husband or a wife, and I think she just realized, like, hey, I just need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. None of it her fault. She's got she's had a brutal road.
Yeah. Jesus. Well, sorry I had to get into that, but
Well, I mean, that's
informative, that's for sure.
that led me to what the good thing that's, some good things have come out of that. One is police training has really been, it's really gone, a lot of departments have gone to like PowerPoint training. And you brought it up earlier about learning to override your self-preservation instinct. Cops need that. Because if you have active shooters and situations like that, you have to have cops that will run into that and handle it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had heard of the school shootings where the cops outside for an hour and a half. Can't have that.
Yeah, and PowerPoint training doesn't get you to that. It doesn't teach you to override that self-preservation instinct.
Well, you did invent a product, and I don't know what it is, but I think we're gonna try it out. It's a tactical training invention. You see more and more products that are sort of non-lethal this and training that for shooting and other things. It's called A.U.FIRE, accuracy under fire. But what was the impetus of it for you?
So in Christina's physical therapy, we were all over the country doing physical therapy, and we did a lot of electrical muscle stimulation. Where they put the sticky electrodes on your skin and it contracts your muscles. So someone had given me a take-home unit to, work on Christina and fight off muscle atrophy. Right, that was the goal. And so it's just one you could buy off Amazon, basically. So I put the electrodes on my bicep. And I didn't read the instructions. I'm just flicking dials, right? And all of a sudden it kicks on, but it kicks on like full blast. And it completely contracts my bicep and held me there for like a 5-second ramp cycle. And then it let me go.
Right.
And I started thinking about it. I thought back to the academy. Remember, I was a construction worker and didn't know anything about policing. And back in '96 in the academy, I remember our SWAT officers going, you guys have got to practice with your offhand because you might be in a pursuit, car crash, and their gun hand is completely crushed and the gunfight starts there, right? So you've got to be able to manipulate your weapon. And I remember them saying, yeah, we'll handcuff our hand behind our back. And I'm sitting there as a construction worker trying to become a cop going, LAPD SWAT handcuffs their hand behind their back to simulate that they've been shot. That seems archaic.
Right.
But what do I know?
Right.
Fast forward 10, 12 years, Christina's injured, we're doing this. I light myself up, and I'm thinking, okay, something like this was immediate. It was totally disabling, totally distracting, totally out of my control. If I could make this remote control, I could wire a guy up, send him into a force-on-force scenario, and then when the shooting starts, I could hit a button, completely take his arm out.
Right.
Now he's forced to fight back accurately and effectively under duress. So I'm thinking something had to have changed by now. So I call the SWAT guys. Now I got friends in there. And I go, hey, how do you guys simulate you've been hit? Oh, we got this glove. We tape our hand shut, blah, blah, blah. It is still that way today. There's like zero reality in it. It's like adult pretend. It would be if you and I were doing search warrant training, the sergeant would come in and go, hey, Adam, when the shot's fired, you go down. Right. And then we all go into the house, and then somebody cracks off some blanks or whatever, and you go, oh, I'm hit, I'm down, and you crumble, and there's a protocol.
Right.
I've always thought it was so ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
For the most critical moment of your life and the most critical moment of your career, and we're doing adult pretend.
Right.
And then now we're expecting officers to go in and go head up with guys with rifles on active shooter situations.
Right.
And they have no experience of fighting back injured.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
Like we train weapons manipulation, tactics, communication, accuracy, everything leading up to the shooting.
Right.
And then we go to TAC Med, and that's put a tourniquet on.
Right.
But you're only putting a tourniquet on because you've been shot.
Right.
So where was the gunfight?
Right.
Injured.
Right.
You're assuming they won.
Right.
And there's nothing there. So the day you're out on patrol, there's only two kinds of shooters. The kind that shoot at you and run or bed down, or the kind that shoot at you and stay in it to kill you. Mm-hmm. Right? And the day that happens, you're out on the street and the guy starts shooting at you, ambush, whatever, and you're hit and he's staying in it. Like, you have to stop that immediately.
Right.
So you've got to be able to shoot back accurately and effectively to stop that threat, or you're dead.
Right.
And at that moment, when you're hit, you're going to realize from the chief down to you, you have nothing but hope and a prayer because no one trained you how to do that. Mm-hmm. You're hoping that you have some inner Rambo come up while you're bleeding out, and you're going to be able to fight back.
Right.
It's just there's no training for it.
So this piece of equipment, we had Jason Mayhem Miller don it because he's quite familiar with bodily pain. All those years in the fighting MMA and the UFC. So he puts this product on, and I think he's here somewhere.
There
Got
he
the
is.
arm, right? And the product's on his right arm.
Let's see. Yeah, so he's wearing number 6. So say he was an officer, and I've got the control right here.
Right.
So I turn it on, and I dial over to him, to his number, right? So he's going in the house. Get on the ground, Carolla. We know you're in there. And so if I hit him in the arm, can you do anything with that? As long as I hold that button down, he's completely contracted.
How much pain is involved?
Son of a...
So you just... Well, he's going to knock the TV shut off.
Sorry, guys.
What'd that do to your arm, Mayhem?
I'm going to give that like a 6. Hit me again. I don't care.
So it's only 66 volts.
Oh, man.
And it just seizes up.
I call this one gang signs.
Oh, it makes your finger...
Wu-Tang!
I'm hitting him on
I definitely dumped the magazine right now.
I'm hitting him on the inside of the forearm.
So you have the sleeve. We put it on your right arm if you're right-handed and your left arm if you're left-handed, I would imagine, or not?
No, you put it on both arms. They don't know when and where it's coming from.
Oh, see, both arms. So we don't know where. And while this thing is going, which obviously if you get shot in the tricep, that's what it's basically going to feel like, then you got to get your weapon and get it to the other hand and be sort of ambidextrous about it.
Yep.
And they don't have this device.
Doesn't exist.
So for you try to market this to police academies, right?
Yeah.
And SWAT and beyond.
Yeah, police departments and military academies. You know,
Military.
hold on, there's one more. I call that one Spider-Man. That's the outer
gets
forearm.
the web shooter out. Wow.
Yeah. So,
all right,
great
Mayhem.
advice.
Thank you for being
Good job, bud.
Good job, man.
being a good sport.
Get me out of here.
Jesus.
But you can see they're just they're conductive electrodes on the inside.
Yeah, I tried out with the Hawthorne SWAT team once as a bit, and I had them put the taser on me. And now, they didn't fire the barbs into my skin. They put the barbs on each foot, I think, and taped them down and gave me the shot.
Yeah.
So I get it.
That's 50,000 volts.
That 50,000 volts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have me doing that. They did not turn it down or modify it or anything.
No.
They just said, look, we're not going to fire it into your neck. We'll put it on your shoes.
Yeah.
But you try to walk toward us, and we'll fire this thing off.
This is an M26 air taser. It's one of our less than lethal options. It's an electrical stun gun. Shoots out 50,000 volts at 26 watts of electricity.
Right. This is what we shoot the guys that are hopped up on PCP with?
Exactly.
All right.
What's going to happen now is I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to give you probably a 1 to 2 second volt of electricity. Adam, what I'd like you to do is focus and try to take a step towards me.
All right.
That part hurt.
That sucked. Well, being a criminal sucks.
I did. There is a part of this where I fire every single gun in their arsenal.
Top of the world, Mom! Top of the world!
Nice.
I think I got him that time.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I literally just
One I
shot
got on her
this.
shoulder would have probably
The hostage.
gone, cleared her shoulder and probably caught him, in his shoulder.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
Okay.
I don't want him to think I'm shooting at the perp. My plan is I'm shooting at the hostage, but the bullet's passing through.
Yeah, well, you get what I was doing over there.
Yeah.
I had a good time firing everything down in that range. The only thing that really got me was the shotgun with the slug in it, the big ball bearing.
Yeah.
That thing had a kick, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it does a lot of damage.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does,
yeah.
especially to a watermelon.
Yeah, so much-
That's just good television.
Yeah.
Well, let me get a plug out for you, Tim. Where can people go? AUFIRE.com.
Yep. It stands for accuracy under fire.
And if you're, if you're military or police or even just, I don't know, hardcore dude who wants all the tactical advantages.
It's stress inoculation training, right?
Mm-hmm.
A stress inoculated officer makes better decisions under stress.
Yes.
Right? More measured decisions. And, when this stuff happens to them in the field, that should not be the first time. They should have done it in a safe training environment.
Hey, listen, they have simulators for airplane pilots and race car drivers.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. A pilot learns how to take off, and he learns how to handle problems in the air, and he learns how to land, right? Right now, in this scenario, our cops are able to take off and they're able to land. But if something goes sideways, where they get hit, they get shot, they have no training.
Right.
And they've got to finish that.
AUFIRE.com. Tim Pearce, thank you so much.
I appreciate
for
it
coming
so
in.
much. Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet
Thanks
you
for
too.
your service. All right.